Hey, I'm Daniel, and on this episode of the Filmcraziest Show, I was able to speak with Virginia Abramovich about her newest film, Between Waves, which she writes and directs. Shot in Toronto and in the Azores, the film was a drama sci-fi film about a woman whose boyfriend goes missing, and she believes that he crossed over to a parallel dimension. This is her story of trying to reconnect with him and a tale about grief and loss. The film released today, September 21st, on video on demand in Canada, and you can check it out on the usual platforms. Be sure to check out my other interviews, but for today's interview for Between Waves, here's Virginia to introduce the conversation.
Hi, I'm Virginia Abramovich, the director and co-writer of Between Waves, and you're watching the Filmcraziest Show.
Cool. Awesome to have you here, Virginia, to talk about your film.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, I'd love to start. Could we just get an idea of the premise of Between Waves?
Sure. It's like a cross genre, so it's a science fiction story. It's also a love story and a story about loss. And it's a story about a woman whose partner disappears and comes to join her from parallel dimension to ask her join him in a different dimension. So it's sort of like it's both. It's kind of like a mystery where you're trying to figure out what happened to his what happened, because he's disappeared, he's gone missing, and also she's dealing with loss and grief, and also being confronted by this other reality, and whether it's her own sanity or not that's coming to question. How did I do? Did I sum that up pretty good?
Yeah, thank you for letting me bring you back to your pitching days.
I know I suck at that.
No, I'm the same. I would not be very good at it, but you did fine. I think you really encapsulate what the film's about. Just curious to go from that. Was it your love of romance that inspired this film, or your love of science fiction?
I'm not a huge romance. I'm definitely more of a science fiction fan. But the story is about loss and grief, which is also just something I wanted to explore, but also looking at mental illness through science fiction, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's funny because I do direct romantic comedies as something I get hired to do as a director for hire, and I think the genre is a lot of fun. So I'm not against it.
Okay.
But it's not I guess the form that I choose to tell my stories in. But it's
okay. So what kind of prompted like this exploration of grief through this kind of medium? Because it's an interesting premise for sure.
It's I think the story was always the story about grief and somebody dealing with loss, and how they negotiate that, and then it kind of went from just sort of a more straight story to a story where there became a science fiction element, and that's what made it really exciting for me, was when that sort of became part of the story, because I find that exciting, and I've always been like, as a teen, I read a lot of science fiction, and I enjoy that genre. I enjoy watching science fiction. So it's just a fun way to look at ourselves through a different lens. The good stuff is really good and really makes you think. And that's what I love about science fiction. So, it's just for me was the way that I wanted to explore this story.
Okay. So using that like sci-fi part of your brain, the research for like establishing the rules for the parallel universes must have been pretty fun.
It was totally fun. And I did research, and I read, theories of multiverses and all that stuff. And, and it's great. It's like a whole rabbit hole. You could go down there and
Literally.
literally, yes, literally. So that was really fun. And then sort of making a universe that made sense for our story was another thing where, sort of creating certain rules, and water is the conduit. And that was just, but then, there was a point where I was, when I was editing the film, and I said to my editor, I guess he would have to be wet all the time because he uses water.
True.
But hey, nobody else questions that logic, so I just mention it now. But yeah, you make rules and then you go, yeah, but that rule, it's okay. We're gonna let that one go.
We'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Now, what prompted using water as the conduit?
Well, it was always the story was always around water, and the idea that Jamie is water, Isaac is fire. The two of them come together in this kind of, creating, almost like rust, right? Like it's the two elements that, coming together. So there's a lot of imagery of, like between the two of them. Like if you look at like the, a painting between the two of them, it's rust color. It's like when they come together, it's sort of corrosive. So sorry, the question was, I totally got off track.
Oh, don't worry. I had
About
asked...
water. Water was, water. So water was, and it's something that Jamie fears, but it's also who she is. So it's like this idea that we often fear the things that we are, that's deep down inside us. Water is fluid. Water is not water like kind of, can permeate through things. And then her having to deal with her fear of water throughout the story. And
Okay.
right. And it's so, yeah, so it I don't know, it worked.
Yeah, I think so. Because like just for me watching it, when it kind of clicked for me, that was like, like all her trauma comes from water, and now she'll have to go through it. I thought that was like one of the most interesting elements of the film in writing.
Yeah, because often like to come to the other side, there's like a block and you have to deal with it, right?
Sure.
So that was part of her journey.
Okay, cool. Now, what was it like casting Fiona Graham as Jamie and then Luke Robinson as Isaac?
So two completely different scenarios where Fiona, I met her like years and years ago, and I met her at a film festival with another film of mine that I was visiting in Houston, and she was there with a film that she had acted in. I loved her performance. She won Best Actress for that film festival, and we wound up sitting together at the same table during the award ceremony and just hit it off. And so there was this thing where I was just like, I'm going to make a film and Fiona's going to star in it. Like it was just something that we talked about doing a film together and collaborating. And then I got a writing grant from the Canada Arts Council. And part of my pitch was to go and develop a character with Fiona that was going to, so I had this idea for a story at the time, but it was more a story about grief and dealing with grief, and didn't have a sci-fi element to it. But I think the sci-fi element is just another extension of it. It's just another expression of it. And so I went and Fiona and I spent like days and days building this character, Jamie. And throughout the process of, and so Fiona was always Jamie. It was this interesting thing that we built together and then built the story around. And then throughout the process of, like we had a table, like we did like a table read. We went and workshopped scenes with her. So Catherine Andrews and I, my co-writer, went down, because Fiona lives in New York. So we went down to New York afterwards and then also like sent her drafts of the script, which she would like, sometimes she'd be like, this is not Jamie. Like she'd like, it's like she'd get like very like possessive of this character and, but it's great because she had so much great insight. And we try to make a very authentic character. So she came into this role, or she came into filming with this like ownership of Jamie. And we had we didn't have to talk about a lot of things because we had discussed it for years now during the writing process.
Okay.
And had worked out so many things. And then Luke Robinson came in through a way more traditional, way of the way usually actors come in, which is he auditioned for the role. And it was just like, okay, he's got it. Like he got it, and he was able to really like take direction and flip on a dime. Like I was like, okay, like now. And so I thought he was like the perfect sort of person for Isaac, because he could sort of embody these different, like he had to embody these different characteristics, but still be authentic. Like it wasn't like, like he was evil, right? So do it in an authentic way. And then him and Fiona hit it off. Like that was really great, because they really did like form a friendship and a relationship in a very fun kind of way where they made their characters grow together. So that was really nice as well.
Okay, that's an interesting collaboration process.
Yeah,
Just from
I
the
feel
start.
very fortunate, because I think it's only well, I know it's only because I had the writing grant that I could afford to go back and forth and do this, and like also afford to take the time to write in this way. So it was great. I feel like, very lucky that I had that opportunity.
Okay. Was Fiona there for like all the auditions when you were auditioning,
No,
Luke? Okay.
no.
Or just for the screen tests, I guess?
Not even.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not even. I auditioned separate. I auditioned in Toronto. I did the auditions in Toronto. I knew that she was she was the lead, and I think she read with Luke. I'm trying to remember. But it was a very separate process, because she was in New York, and she was, had her life going on, and then she just came here to film. So
Oh, okay. And you guys filmed in Toronto?
we filmed in Toronto and in the Azores.
Okay. So how long did you film in Toronto for? And then how long did you film in the Azores?
Toronto was 11 days. Then on the weekend, like on Sunday, so we finished shooting on Friday. On Sunday night, we got on a plane, went to the Azores. We shot for 9 days, plus like a half a day of like a very splinter unit of just going to some of the more remote places without sound, where we just, sort of we filmed driving, and we filmed particular spots with just camera. And then we came back. Then in Toronto, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks after we got back, we had an underwater shoot, and that was
Oh,
a
okay.
separate. Yeah,
How did you shoot the underwater scene?
yeah, I love the story, because we had no money, and we didn't have, like, usually you would go into a tank, right, and into a water tank, and you would have people, you have scuba diver people that are like professional, scuba diver people with, all the. We had the blimp, the underwater equipment for filming,
Okay.
but my DP didn't have a diver's license or scuba gear or anything. So we got a ladder. So we knew somebody who had a pool.
Okay.
Got a ladder that we bought brand new, so it was clean. Put it into the pool. Put Jason Weber, director of photography, on the ladder with weights, and a snorkel. And he would take the blimp with the camera, and he would go into the water, and our cast would swim through or swim between, and so the rest of it is just edited, because it's just layers of somebody going through camera or going like in front of camera. Or they would spin, or they would, or we would throw the anchor and it would go through. And then there was also a lighting, a design that was above water. So when Jamie and Isaac go into the place where they meet, into the between the parallel universes where they're meeting, which is kind of this in between place, there was a lighting scheme of blue and red lights that would get panned off and on the water. So again, going with the blue and red of the the meeting of the two, so that you have that those colors going through the water as they come towards each other, and as she's going to meet him.
That's neat. I love learning about like indie films and how they do like tricky scenes like that.
That was very tricky. That was Alex Jordan, the producer on the film, who was awesome. And that was his idea, because he was like, because originally somebody was going to come with scuba gear and they wound up not coming. And he was like, oh, we're just going to get a ladder. We're going to put Jason on the ladder, get him a snorkel. And it worked.
It did. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
next time though, we would get 3 ladders, because it would have been really helpful if the cast also had ladders so they could like perch on them and then go in and do their thing.
oh, okay. So they're kind of just floating there.
Yeah. So, well, they would like be at the edges of the pool, but then anyway, so that's a lesson learned. If anybody attempts to do this, get 3 ladders, but get them clean. So you have to buy new ones.
Okay, good advice. Now, I also wanted to ask about going back to it's Azores?
The Azores, yeah.
Okay.
So they're Portuguese islands in the middle of the Atlantic.
Okay, I'd honestly never heard of them before. So Azores, okay. Now
you gotta check them out.
Now, what was it? It must have been so fun, like location scouting. What was that like?
Oh, it was a blast. So my husband's family is from the Azores, so I've been there before. I've been to the island of San Miguel before. But when we went scouting, it was myself, the first AD, who was not the first AD that wound up shooting with us, but doesn't matter. And we had like our local guide, and he was helped us produce it in the Azores. His name is Philippe, and the director of photography. And it was really fun we were like little kids in a candy shop. We'd be like, oh my God, we're going to film here. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And so it was fun. Scouting was fun because it's such a beautiful place. And then figuring out like, what can we actually do? And then in the end, like some locations that we wanted to film in, we couldn't get to, or we couldn't get permission to film in. But most of the stuff we wanted to film, everybody was so generous and compliant, and like not like just you'd never have this in Toronto. We had the local police come to when we were filming in the little village, the Villa Franca. We had the local police come and block off the road so she could run across the road. And they just came out, like they were like, just came out. Here it would cost like so much money to do that, right?
Love to be a part of a movie.
Yeah, they were just like, they're like, well, just come out and play with you today. We'll help you out. So most people were just like, sure, you can come film in our store, or you could come film in, or yeah, it was like people were very generous and kind, and
okay,
helped us out a lot. But we also had to bring all of our own equipment, including Apple boxes, everything.
Oh yeah,
because there's none of that kind of equipment on the island. So
okay,
that was the challenge. The nice thing was how beautiful it was. And
yeah, gorgeous. I can't imagine don't quote me, but I'm not sure if like a lot of films would be filmed there. So I imagine that was fun for them.
No, I think I don't know if any other film that's filmed there.
That's kind of cool to have that, like, be like, we're breaking ground in the film industry here.
Oh, for sure. And we were supposed to have like a big, so Philippe was, because he organizes music festivals usually, but it was great to have somebody that had such a, he was an organizer, and he also had like access to all the local facilities and places, and got like all these great deals for us. But he was organizing a screening of the film on the beach where we shot.
Oh, cool.
And but because of COVID, that's been delayed. Hopefully next summer we can do that.
And like the crew and cast will go back and watch it?
If they can, yeah, like they're absolutely invited to come. It's something we would do in the summertime, and a lot of the cast and crew probably are like, most of the crew works like in Toronto. You work in the summertime. That's when you
Sure.
make money in film. So we'll see who's available, but definitely everybody's invited. You can come if you want. It'll be great.
That sounds awesome. I'd also love to ask, just you had talked about the locations that you couldn't use. Like, what were some of those? What scenes were you gonna do with any, like, a scene you couldn't use?
One location. Well, there was originally in the script. It was scripted that she was gonna go meet Isaac. Like that scene when she meets him at the end. It was supposed to be at the bottom of the volcano, because yeah, it's awesome. They have like volcanoes and that have not erupted since the 1500s. There's three actually, and at the bottom of the volcano is a lake that you could go swimming in because it's just filled up with water.
Okay.
It's spectacular, but in my head, we were going to be able to drive down there somehow. But when we actually and we were like, no, you can't drive down there. You have to climb. You have to like hike down for like 2 hours, and it's like a fairly intense hike. So that went out. That was like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. So instead, it was just, she meets him on the beach, which was a beautiful beach. So,
Okay.
but so that was one. There was an abandoned house that was very cool, not the one that we wound up shooting in. So we got a different location, but the one we wanted to shoot in was just like insane and had like all this. It had like all this nature and this one was pretty cool too, but it was like even more like, overgrown with nature. But when we were looking at it was where we got the idea for the X, because there was an X in there.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, we got to film here. Look, there's an X. And we were like, ooh, goosebumps, blah, blah, blah. So we never, but it was whatever. The owners just didn't want us filming there. I think probably because of the liability of like, what if somebody hurts themselves, because it was in a falling apart house.
Okay.
But in the end, we got a different house, a different abandoned house, and we put our own X in it.
Okay.
So it worked. I don't know, things. It's funny, like sometimes, and it kind of worked out better because the other place we would have had to hike to, because it was in the middle of sort of this kind of jungle area, or jungle, but like a very overgrown area. And this one we just drove up to it, and it was right there. So in the end, it actually worked out better for our schedule and all those things, and it turned out very cool, anyways. So.
Okay, more practical. All right.
And it worked out better, and but then it gave us the X. And there was like things where you just can't control, like weather, things like that. So.
Oh, just that one scene where Jamie is driving around and it's to the song "You and Your Sister." Like, can you talk about like structuring that scene? Because that was one of my favorite moments in the film, because it's just kind of like so serene, and the visuals are so great.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I had I collect images, I collect music as I'm, as I was writing this script, and as I was, getting ready to direct. So I had, just compiled all these images, all this music and all this stuff. And one of the songs I had was "You and Your Sister." And it was, I didn't know that Chris Bell, I knew it from the Cocteau Twins. No, not the Cocteau Twins, This Mortal Coil, which was a 4AD compilation. And so I knew that's where I knew the song from. And it was just a very, like, it is like a very, a song, it's a song with a lot of grief and sorrow in it, right? Like, it sort of really resonated for me, resonated as a song that I thought of when I thought of the mood of this film. And when we were editing, we were cutting this scene, and there was a point where it was just do we even need this scene? We should just throw it out. Like, like you're deciding, it's like she's just kind of like driving around and who cares, and maybe we'll just cut to her at the waterfall. I don't know. And then we were just like, well, let's just try this song. And we like just literally like without just dropped the song in there, and it was perfect. And all of a sudden this scene worked so well, and it was so, like it was perfect. And so then it became, with no money, how are we going to get this song? Okay. So that's like, and it, to the last minute until we, so then I found, so then I contacted 4AD, found out that it was actually Chris Bell, who's passed away, but he's a big icon, a big like country icon, right?
Sure.
So, then we had a music supervisor that was amazing, that was helping us out, and wound up contacting the family, and there was all this back and forth, and they wanted to see what it looked like. So we send them a clip of it. My composer, Stephen Cracklow, he scored the music, because we were just getting the sync rights to use I think it's called the sync, to use just to use it, but we had to re-record it ourselves.
Okay.
And so until the second last day of the sound mix, I still did not have confirmation that we could use the song. And literally I got a phone call going, okay, you got the song. And we got it. It was so cheap, like insane. And well, cheap for that, like,
okay.
It fit to our budget, and we were able to use it. And Stephen recorded it with this amazing singer, and it all came through. And it was like one of those like last minute, like, I don't know if it's going to happen, and I don't know what we're going to have there, because nothing else works. Like we couldn't find anything else. Like it was one of those things where it's like, be careful what you put in there. Once you fall in love with it, you got to figure out how to make it work. So yeah, thank you for that. That's really like lovely to hear, because it was one of those things we, fought for.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad it made it in.
Yeah.
I'm glad it came together too. I don't know if you guys would have had any backup songs, or just probably.
I don't even know. It's funny. We just had a screening at the Paradise, and so we'd had like a Q&A, and Stephen was there, and he reminded me, and I totally didn't even remember how I sent him all these images, and that helped him with the score, because I think the score is amazing. And then he said, but for that song, he said, I don't know what the backup plan was, because we it's just like, I don't think we had one. I think we were just like, come through, please.
Okay, fair enough.
It's kind of like the whole film. Like there was no backup plan. We were just gonna make it.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
That was our plan. It was just like, just fucking do it.
Sure. How did that premiere go at the Paradise?
It was great. It was sold out.
Okay.
And it was really fun. I mean, sold out in COVID is a lot less numbers than.
Sure.
It wasn't like the full theater. It was sold out to their capacity of what they could have for COVID. But
okay.
It was fun. It's fun. It's wonderful to see it on a big screen, because when we made it, I thought it would be on the big screen a lot more than just like a week of a run, right?
Yeah, that's fair. The Q&A must have been pretty neat, like hearing people connect with the film.
Yeah, actually yesterday, Catherine Andrews, who's here from Copenhagen, she's my co-writer, her and I went down to because the Landmark Theaters also had it playing yesterday.
Okay.
It played across different theaters across Ontario, and I think in some places in Canada as well. So we went to the Q&A there.
Oh, neat.
And that was really fun, because there was a whole bunch of film students, because they were promoting it, because they have a film program there at Laurier. So so we went there, and there was just like a whole bunch of film students that had the best questions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they like really. It was nice to. They really, really connected with the film, and and it was really fun to see how they interpreted it and all the questions they had around filmmaking as well, but also so that was fun. That was yesterday. That was
Did they have any good questions I could steal from them?
trying to think. I'm trying to think what they asked a lot about, like, because I don't want to give it away, but they were like, so what happened in the end? And they were like, what? And there was just like all the stuff where they were thinking a lot about stuff,
Okay.
about like filmmaking. Also, they had a whole bunch of questions. There's a lot of, it was good. It was fun.
Okay.
It was fun to hear like different voices and how they interpreted it, how they thought about it, and
Yeah, I think your film is going to have a lot of different interpretations, and that's pretty neat to start that conversation.
Yes. Yeah. It's a fun conversation to be just like, oh, okay, how did you see it? So.
And the three more, maybe more will come up, but we talk a bit about the underwater scenes, but I'd just like to was it difficult shooting the water in general, just like for maybe not for the underwater scenes, but just for like in general, I guess?
Yeah, the hardest, actually, that's one of the questions I was asked. What was the hardest part of the shoot? And the hardest part of the shoot was actually the open water stuff, because the underwater we had like, it was quite like way more controlled, and it's in a pool, and we had a lifeguard and everything. The open and for the open water, we did have like a safety boat and a crew boat and the hero boat, and we had a lifeguard in the water with all the scuba stuff. But you're going out in the ocean, in open water, and that was I think I think we shot it on day 3 of our stay in the Azores, and after that everybody relaxed.
Okay.
After that we're like, okay, we're just making a film now. But the open water, because you're out and we weren't as far as it looks in, like we were closer to shore than but it's you're out in the open water. And all kinds of things could be dangerous. And we had a small window to shoot because we had to do it when the weather was good.
Okay.
Right. So you have to time the weather, you have to time all these things. And then it's a safety concern, right? For everyone. My director of photography most of the stuff was filmed with the Rodin, which is a gimbal mechanism. It's like the poor man's Steadicam. The Ronin 2. So actually pretty much everything in that film except for the underwater stuff was with the Ronin. And so
Okay.
so he was strapped, and it's like with that and the camera, that's like 30-40 pounds with the lenses, and he's strapped into this thing, right? And he climbs in the boat, and Alex Jordan, our producer, handed him a pocket knife and said, if you go under, you have to cut yourself free.
God.
Yeah, because it's like you're not don't screw the camera, screw all that stuff, just cut yourself free, because it's just like there's no other way of coming up.
Might as well be having an anchor on him almost.
Yeah, exactly. So it was all like, so there was a lot of, like it was that was probably the hardest part. And I didn't know this, but Fiona actually herself is afraid of water. But
Wow.
she didn't tell me this until later, which came out in interviews. And I was like, that's nuts. Because I had her going. So what didn't make it in the cut was she actually she had to go into the water to come out of the boat. But in the end, I decided that it was actually looked way more dramatic to just have this empty boat with the drone shot. And I had to call her and I had to say, oh man, you're going to kill me, but I'm not going to use that shot. But she had to go into the ocean and climb back out. Like she had somebody, there was a guy in like scuba gear and with in a lifeguard that was with her.
Okay.
But she had to do that. She had to go into the ocean and then come back out. So when she met Miguel, and then she had to go into the waterfall. And my first AD, Alan McKenna, was like he'd always go with her. And it's funny, he couldn't come out because he's working right now for the screening, and he said to me before the screening, he said, "Just remember who's standing beside her in the water." But anyways, it was I think, like, for all of us, there were things that it was really hard, but it was really awesome too. It was really fun. It was a really good group of people, and it was one of those things where we were doing it for the sake of telling a good story and making art, because there was no money in it. So nobody came there for, nobody was, everybody was sort of paid a bare minimum, and it was people's generosity, people's kindness, people wanting to tell a story and sort of be part of this, like, thing. It was very special.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because it doesn't it doesn't seem like super like micro budget, to be honest. Like with like shooting in Toronto and then just how beautiful the Azores are, it looks like a big production.
Yeah, which is awesome, which is great, which I didn't want it to look budget.
Okay.
It's also beautiful cinematography by Jason Weber, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of the crew, like I've been in the film industry for, like 20 years, and then I had a very professional crew. The sound was amazing, everything, beautiful costumes, so none of it was budget, because we had such amazing people. The drone work was awesome. And it's Rob Torrey is he recorded the sound out of a bag. So basically he mixed and boomed himself, and then would pull out his drone and throw it up in the air, and we would do drone stuff. And so just amazing, very talented people that came out for this. So I think that's what I direct films, and I find I part of my sort of philosophy is I try to have a really good energy on set and create a very good environment, very positive environment. Like, if there's drama, try to keep that away from set, or deal with it individually, not like in an open area. And and it comes through in the film, right?
Yeah.
That's what I find. Like that energy, that positive energy, or that like passion, or whatever it is, it permeates the film. So I think that's part of that.
Okay.
And surrounding yourself with good people when you're filming,
For sure,
is really important.
Now, earlier you had said you were a director for hire for romantic comedies. So was there anything you learned on those sets that you kind of bring to this one that sounds more like a passion project?
Yeah, so I actually, prior to doing this one, I had not directed romantic. I had directed some children's television.
Okay.
And since I've done Between Waves, I got hired so I've actually made 5 romantic comedies since I've directed Between Waves.
Wow.
But every time I direct, it doesn't matter what I'm directing, I always learn something, which is why I love it.
Okay.
I work with different people all the time, different actors, different directors of photography, different, production designers, different assistant directors, all like different producers. And I'm always learning something. It's like, I have so much more to learn, like every
Fair.
time. I'm always like, 2 films ago, I was just like, I really got into lenses. It started to, I just scratched this. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, and I'm just starting to see, understand and really understand what lens, like how lenses and the different lenses how they add the, the to the film. And
Okay.
it's like all those things are like this director of photography I just worked with was really into like, he would, I had to justify if I wanted to move the camera or if I wanted certain framing, and he'd just be like, why? But it's great because he made me work for it. He made me really think about it and really like, and just took it to a different level. So I'm always learning, and it's I don't know how else you would learn these things.
Okay.
It's like learning it from and learning like how to tell the story economically, how to do it, but also like how much I could push what I could, visually and experimenting with things. I do all kinds of stuff. It's so much fun.
Okay. I love the passion hearing you talk about it. It's awesome.
I'm obsessed. I am.
Now, for Between Waves, I also wanted to ask, just I love like unique jobs in films, and I thought it was interesting that Jamie is a fashion photographer, like a bunch of different photography. So did that come from you, or did that come from Fiona thinking about that job?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I'm like, I don't think it came from Fiona. I think Jamie being a photographer I just thought it was a nice visual thing that she could do and be. But the photographs, I have to say, all the photographs in the film are from a good friend of mine who's a photographer, and it's Sci-Fi, and he's an amazing photographer. And actually, behind me this is one of the Between Waves. This was in Between Waves.
Oh, cool.
But he's just super talented. So the fashion photography, but also all the stuff inside Jamie's house, which this was in Jamie's house, but it's more like experimental stuff that he does.
Okay.
So I think I needed her to be creative. Like for me to like connect with a character, she had to be somebody creative. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have, cared about her as much. And I'm just saying this just for me, like that I would understand her and have be interested in her journey. I don't know. That's
okay. I mean, she seems to see the world in a different way being a photographer. So I think there's merit to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I imagine that added a bit to the equipment costs for the film. Getting all the camera equipment.
No.
Okay.
That was her. I don't know. She had a backpack and some lenses.
Okay.
Oh, you mean okay, sorry, I take that back. The professional camera that she used in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, sorry.
And that was a loan from a friend of mine that came out and set up the photography.
Oh, cool
stuff. Andrew and he that was very cool, and he also did some stills that day. So it's I have a lot of people to thank for this film.
That's awesome. And then I think I have one more, so I'm just gonna look.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask about the transitions in the film. Like I thought one was pretty neat when the singer is singing and then that goes to the harmonizing with the record player. So what was it like creating those transitions to the flashbacks?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's a great question. Because the transitions are something that Jason Weber and I spend a lot of time planning. And not only that, like I started planning the transitions in the writing process.
Okay.
So there was transitions that were already scripted in the writing process because there's some really fun transitions if you ever watch it again. And the stuff on the bridge, there's a lot of transitions there that were planned because there's a lot of times going from the bridge into like it wasn't just randomly shot. Like there was a lot of transitions in that. My favorite transition is She opens up the fridge in Toronto, and we cut to Renata opening the fridge in the Azores.
Right.
And that was planned. But we got to the Azores and the fridge opened the wrong way. And we're like,
no.
shit. But we flipped it in post and it cut. And it was the most exciting thing because I didn't know until we got to post if that transition was going to cut. But yeah, but there's transitions between timelines, and then there's transitions between past and present, because you go a lot between past and present.
For sure.
Also, we graded the film, the stock differently. So it had a bit of it was more saturated and had a film grain for the stuff that was past.
Okay.
So, and then this transitions into her mind, into her fears, into like, so there's a lot of planning, but good planning. Like it was like really fun to think of like, okay, how now it's this, now how are we going to transition? What are we going to use for this? Yes. And then there was audio transitions where, her scream would melt into the waves. And, like there was like that kind of stuff. So, and some things were planned and some things we discovered in post while we were editing. So that was the other place.
Yeah, that must be a neat thing to find that in post. Be like, and especially with the fridge you're talking about, like, it works. Like, I'm glad it does.
Nobody notices that cut except like me, the editor, and the DP, because we were so excited about it.
I'll have to watch it again and see that cut again.
Yeah, like it's just, because it goes back and forth, and it goes back from the Azores to Toronto to past and present to different timelines. And there's another really great transition where she pours the wine onto the beach.
Yeah.
And then we cut into the wine being poured into the glass. There was a lot of planning in that, like even in, we're going to frame it this way, and then we're going to frame, like, how do we cut into this and, make it look like it's transitioning to that. So it was, it's good. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's great that it feels seamless, but yeah, the transitions were huge. You're always, when you're directing, you're always thinking about transitions. They're really, really important. Because they tell a story, and it's they tell a very important story as well. But in this case, it was like even more important because you needed to smoothly be able to come from one place to another.
Now, for the editor, is that more like a headache, or is that a fun puzzle for this film?
Oh, this film was a totally a puzzle.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like Jeremy Shallenby is the editor on this, and he is great. Like, we played so much and found so many like other beats and moments that were never scripted, that were that just gave this film like kind of took it to another level. So yeah, for a good editor, this is like so much fun.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So Virginia Abramovich, who directs and co-writes Between Waves, thank you for chatting with me on the Filmcraziest Show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Cool. And the film comes out on video on demand in Canada on September 21st.
Yes.
Awesome.